Jan Wellman is not a theologian, priest, or philosopher. He is an entrepreneur and technology investor who spends much of his life thinking about innovation, human potential, and the future. Yet, in a recent essay entitled Debugging Faith, he asks a profoundly ancient question. What kind of understanding of reality best explains the human experience of meaning, purpose, truth, and love? To answer that question, he begins not with an argument, but with a memory. At 7 years of age, he was sitting beside his father, who was piloting a twin-engine Beechcraft over the icy Baltic Sea, when both engines suddenly cut out. At around 10,000 feet, the aircraft began to fall. Wellman looked at his father, expecting panic, and saw something unforgettable: complete calm. His father met his eyes, nodded reassuringly, and quietly worked through the emergency procedures. Then, at around 1,500 feet, one engine restarted, then the other. The plane climbed once more into the light above the clouds. Years later, Wellman realized that something much more important had happened that day than the saving of an aircraft. His father had passed on a way of seeing reality. In a moment when everything seemed to be falling apart, he trusted that reality was intelligible, that it could be engaged rather than feared, and that panic was not the deepest truth of the situation. His mother offered him a very different vision. Intelligent, artistic, and deeply atheist, she viewed reality as essentially material, accidental, and self-contained. Between these two influences, Wellman found himself caught between two competing stories about the world. That tension eventually led him to write about what he calls coherent reality. His central insight is simple but profound. Each one of us lives by faith. Not necessarily religious faith, but faith nonetheless. We trust science, politics, economics, relationships, institutions, ideologies, or ourselves. The real question is not whether we have faith. The question is whether the story we trust is large enough to make sense of reality as we actually experience it. For Wellman, reality seems to point beyond itself. Human beings hunger for meaning, beauty, truth, love, and purpose in ways that purely material explanations struggle to explain. The deepest dimensions of our lives seem less like accidents and more like clues. That insight provides a fascinating doorway into this weekend's readings. The three readings approach reality from different directions, yet together they offer a remarkably coherent vision. Solomon asks for wisdom, not wealth, not power, wisdom. He knows that the most important thing in life is learning to see clearly. The first reading reminds us that reality becomes coherent when we learn to discern what truly matters. Paul takes the next step. Beneath life's uncertainties and contradictions, he sees a deeper purpose at work. His conviction is simple but powerful. Our lives are not accidents. We are being drawn towards what we are meant to become. Reality becomes coherent when we trust that our lives belong to a larger story. Then Jesus speaks of a treasure hidden in a field and a pearl beyond price. Both parables point to a startling insight. When we discover what is truly valuable, everything else finds its proper place. Reality becomes coherent when we recognize what is ultimately worth living for. Wisdom, purpose, treasure. The wisdom to see clearly. The purpose that carries us forward. The treasure that gives everything else its meaning. And perhaps that is why Wellman's childhood memory remains so powerful. As the aircraft plunged towards the Baltic Sea, the 7-year-old boy looked not at the aeroplane's instruments, but at his father's face. He wanted to know whether reality could be trusted. That is the question beneath every human life. Can reality be trusted? Is there meaning beneath the confusion? Is there purpose beneath the suffering? Is there something worth giving our lives to? This weekend's readings answer with a resounding yes. Solomon points to wisdom. Paul, in his letter to the Romans, points to purpose. Jesus points to treasure. Wisdom to see clearly. Purpose to keep going. Treasure worth everything. Wellman argues that the real question is not whether we have faith, but whether our faith is aligned with reality itself. The scriptures make the same claim. Faith is not an escape from reality. It is the trust in the deepest truth about reality. And perhaps maturity in faith is learning to look at life as that 7-year-old boy looked at his father in the cockpit, not denying the turbulence, not pretending there is no danger, but trusting that there is something deeper than fear. Amen.